Here is a bet that tells you a lot about where smart money thinks the AI build-out is actually constrained. In the first quarter of 2026, Lone Pine Capital, the concentrated growth shop that sizes its best ideas large, opened a brand new position of about $214 million in a company called Argan. Not a chip maker, not a hyperscaler. Argan is at its core a construction company. It builds power plants. And in the very same quarter, Bridgewater Associates, the largest hedge fund in the world, independently opened a new position in the exact same name. Combined, about $222 million, all of it new money. So here is the question worth a few minutes. Why would a high-conviction growth fund put 9 figures into a power plant contractor? And why did a systematic macro fund land on the same name in the same window? Every number comes straight from their filings with the SEC. Let's walk through it. Start with the filings, because the size is the signal. Lone Pine Capital opened a brand new Argan position, about 393,000 shares, worth roughly $214 million at quarter end. For a concentrated fund that runs a tight book, a brand new 9-figure position is a real-sized conviction call. In the very same quarter, Bridgewater Associates also opened a new Argan position, about 14,000 shares, around $7.5 million. Be honest about the shape of it. Lone Pine is roughly 97% of the dollars here. This is overwhelmingly Lone Pine's call, with Bridgewater as a much smaller, independent confirmation. But a quarter earlier, neither fund owned a single share. Zero. Two firms with completely different processes both decided in the same window that a power plant builder was worth starting. Why does it matter that it was these two? Because of who they are. Lone Pine Capital, founded by Stephen Mandel out of the Tiger Management lineage, is known for highly concentrated, deeply researched bets on quality businesses. They hold a small number of names and size them large. So a brand new 9-figure position is a statement, not a sprinkle. Bridgewater Associates, founded by Ray Dalio, is the largest hedge fund on earth, running systematic, data-driven macro rather than a single stock picker's hunch. A hand-picked, high-conviction growth bet and a rules-driven macro machine, arriving at the same construction company in the same quarter without coordinating. The dollars are lopsided, the independence is not. And when those two very different lenses point at the same boring-sounding contractor, it is worth asking what they might both be seeing. And here is the reframe that makes the bet make sense. On paper, Argan is a sleepy, cyclical construction company, an engineering and construction contractor, the kind of business the market usually prices at a low multiple and forgets about. But look at what it actually builds. Through its main subsidiary, Gemma Power Systems, Argan is an engineering procurement construction firm that builds power plants, natural gas generation, and renewables. Now connect that to the single biggest bottleneck in the AI build-out. Everyone talks about the chips, but the chips have to be fed by electricity, and the grid is already straining to supply the data centers being planned. Someone has to actually build the new generation. That is what Argan does. So a high-conviction fund, putting $200 million here, may not be buying a boring contractor at all. It may be buying one of the picks and shovels builders of AI-era power. That reframe is the cleanest explanation for why a growth concentrator and a macro fund both showed up at the same name. So what power of all things? Here is the part most people miss about the AI build-out. Everyone watches the processors, NVIDIA, the chip makers, the hyperscalers. But all of that computing has to run somewhere, and somewhere means electricity at a scale the grid was not built for. The bottleneck is no longer just the chip. It is the megawatts, the substations, and the new generation that has to be constructed to feed the racks. The chip makers do not build power plants. Argan does. While the market priced it for years as an ordinary cyclical contractor, the demand on the other end of its order book is being reshaped by exactly the build-out everyone else is chasing through the chip names. At around $545 a share, implied by the filings at quarter end. This was not a forgotten penny stock, which makes two independent funds starting a position right here at the same time. More interesting, not less. Now, one quarter does not make a thesis. A 13F tells you what they bought. It does not tell you why, and it does not tell you whether they will keep buying. So the real test is the next filing, which lands in August. If Lone Pine adds to Argan and Bridgewater stays in or builds, then this was genuine conviction, and the build the power thesis is strengthening. But if Lone Pine trims or Bridgewater quietly exits, then it was a shorter-term trade rather than a structural call. Either way, here is the part that matters most. None of this is a tip, and you do not have to take my word or anyone else's for any of it. Every figure in this video comes straight from each fund's own filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. No estimates, no insider whispers, just open data. So go pull the 13Fs for yourself and verify every number.